Hi, welcome to Politics Knoxville. I'm Stacy Campfield. This is part of the Campfield Interviews. Today I'm interviewing Becky Duncan Massey. She is a candidate for the 6th Senatorial District in the Republican primary. Becky, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Well, first I want to apologize for my voice. I've got a little bit of allergies, so I'll try not to bounce around too much. But I'm from Knoxville. I was born and raised here in Knoxville and grew up out in East Knoxville, out in Holston Hills. Started out at Chilhowie School and product of all the public school education, and graduated from the University of Tennessee with a degree in business. I married my husband. We've just recently celebrated our 35th anniversary. He is also a Knoxville native, and we are the proud parents of 2 grown daughters. Our oldest is 32 and lives here in town, and our youngest is 29 and does live in Texas. We'd love to have her back home at some point. While my girls were little, I was fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mom, but also a very active community volunteer. I was able to help in their schools. They went through Rocky Hill, Beard Middle, and West High School. And but also my husband and I coached girls softball for 22 years. And just imagine trying to coach softball with your husband and y'all not killing each other. But we did it successfully. We coached at about every ballpark in Knox County. Was real involved in the Dogwood Arts Festival, Cedar Springs Presbyterian Church, Akima Club, and a lot of things like that. When my youngest started middle school, that's when I pursued a full-time career and started at Sertoma Center, an agency serving adults with intellectual disabilities, and started out doing their public relations and fundraising 17 years ago. And about 13 years ago, I became the executive director and have held that position since that time. And one other thing that we've been actively involved, we'll talk about Sertoma probably more in a little bit as it relates to state issues, but my husband and I still do extensive volunteer work. After we quit coaching softball, we now help out a good portion of the charity auctions in Knoxville for the different nonprofits. And we do their computerized checkout at their charitable auctions, and we help out about 60 groups a year and put in about 200 hours a year in community service doing that. So that's kind of an overview.
Okay, well, let's get into some of the issues that you would be voting on or talking about in the legislature. And we'll start right off with taxes, fees, and economic development.
Okay.
And we'll go right into, there's a move. Some people like to think, right now we pay about 22 cents a gallon for a gallon of gas tax.
Right.
Some people think that that should not be based on the gallon rate. It should be based on the overall price. So when the price of oil goes up, there's more money goes into our road fund, which is made of a lot of road. Would you be supportive of a move to change from a fixed price per gallon tax to a variable price based on the cost of the gallon of oil or gas?
Well, as a rule, like I say, I've not really researched that specific issue on the variable rate. I am not in favor of income tax. I'm not, and fees are a form of taxes, and that is based, on the consumption. But that does make sense to look at that, and I would need to study it. But I would be at the front end in favor of that. But I would like to talk to the constituents more and get feedback from them, and then I would make my decision and do more research too.
Okay. Would you support toll roads in Tennessee?
No.
Okay. Will you support or carry any legislation for a local tax or local fee increase in this area or in other areas?
No. I believe that, like I say, fees are a form of taxes, and, one of my primary tenets basically that I believe in is that, one, I think at times there's way too much legislation there, too many laws on the books, and I would look more toward ways of paring things down and reducing some of the laws on the book. And so I would be very selective in the things that I put my name on. I believe in the constituent service and working with the constituents of the district and representing their views and their values. And so I would, really move very hesitantly to say, okay, I'm just going to go down there and put my name and introduce a lot of bills. That's just not my style. So,
Would you support, vote for, or carry legislation for any statewide fee increase or tax increase?
no.
How about there's a lot of hullabaloo going on right now about sales tax breaks for internet commerce. There's Amazon is coming in as offering a bunch of jobs, but they do not want to be charged sales tax or don't want to have to charge sales tax for customers within Tennessee. Other people like Barnes & Noble and now Amazon is getting into bigger, more things like selling bicycles and clothes and everything else under the sun. They're saying we're having to compete with them, and that's not an unfair. That's an unfair advantage that they have over us. Do you support making Amazon a potential new employer to Tennessee pay that sales tax?
On that issue, and I've thought about that one quite a bit because I do believe in developing jobs. It is important that we develop jobs, but I don't believe in giving anybody an unending tax break. I could see possibly doing it a short-term, time-limited break to help them develop their infrastructure into the community and develop the jobs, maybe a couple of years or something. But beyond that, the unending thing, I think, puts a totally unfair advantage on our businesses that have invested in Tennessee. They've been here, they've been good corporate citizens, and I just don't believe in giving any kind of unending, perpetual tax break to a business.
Okay. Is economic development or economic enhancement ever a valid reason to take private land through eminent domain?
As a general rule, no, but there would be some exceptions depending upon, you'd have to look at a case-by-case basis, but I do believe that the private homeowner and the private thing should take precedence. And I know there's been cases of the government taking eminent domain and then not using it or using it in a very quick manner. So there needs to be safeties in place so that if land is going to be taken for something that is major, it shouldn't be just capricious. But if they take it, it needs to be used in a timely manner or it needs to be reverted back to the homeowner.
Okay. Education, important issue for many people.
Yes.
Do you support school choice for children in failing schools?
I support school choice, but this is another issue that, I'm a very large public school advocate. I went through public schools, my children went through public schools, and as a rule, at the front end, like I say, I've just been running for a little over a month, so I'm out talking to the constituents, but there's 192,000 constituents in the district, and there's more research that needs to be done. And one thing that you'll find if you talk to my staff, I've always been able to sit down and listen to both sides of the issue. And I've always felt like that I could sit down and listen to both sides. But as a rule, I believe it is the government's job to invest in public education and to make it the strongest and most viable and the best education it can be. So as a rule, I don't support vouchers, which is kind of where that's going. But I'm not saying I would never consider a vote on that without more talk and more research. But that's my basic philosophy: is make public education the very best it can be.
Okay, that was my next question. Was would you support allowing vouchers into private schools? So you're probably not. Is that correct? I don't want to speak for you.
Well, I'm just saying at this point in time, my basic philosophy is the private schools are well funded for the most part, and we volunteer and help out a number of the private schools here in Knoxville, and they do a great job. But they also have the ability to do a good job on fundraising. They do offer scholarships to their schools, and for individuals that would be the vouchers would be targeting. So I think there are some other mechanisms in place, but I also am open to. I know there's more to the story than I've studied at this point, and I would consider look at it.
When,
Yes.
and I want to go back a question if I could. When I said
Sure.
we're talking about school choice for children in failing schools, I would talking about more of a choice between state schools being, say, there's a school inside the city that maybe is not as good as West or Farragut or
Okay.
someplace
Okay.
like that. Would you support allowing a student who was in, say, a inner city failing school to be able to go to a different school if they so chose?
Absolutely. I do support that. I'm sorry, I did misunderstand. I mean,
Yeah, I'm
'cause
sorry. Some of these questions, if I'm not clear, please let me know.
Well,
you know.
they kind of blend, and the voucher thing has been a big topic, and so, but yeah, I do support school choice.
Okay. Would you support state testing of homeschool students?
I would need more information on that, but I think they should be pretty much on a level playing field. And I mean, at first glance, I would say yes.
Okay. Should education requirements and curricula be uniform and set by the state or teachers and local school boards?
Like I say, I'm not a teacher. I have a lot of good friends that are teachers and family members that are teachers, but that is something that I would think it would need to be more standardized, so you would have you could compare apples to apples for the folks entering into the universities. They would know that they were coming off of more or less the same testing. So if somebody tested in Knoxville versus testing up in Johnson City, they would be coming with pretty much the same standards, and so your higher education, your employers and things like that would know that you were really comparing apples to apples.
Okay. How about for the ability of homeschool students to participate in state school functions such as sports, band, and possibly even some classes, but maybe not others?
I think if the agreements could be worked out with the things, I think that would be a good opportunity for our homeschool students. And I admire anybody that homeschools, the parents that take on that responsibility, because it is a big responsibility, and not everybody has that skill of being able to teach and do a good job of it. So I definitely admire the families that do go through homeschooling and make that choice for their family members.
An elected or appointed school superintendent?
There's good arguments on both sides. I think I've always liked the elected superintendent. I think that's good. There's times, though, that it's just like sometimes when in running our president of the United States, sometimes it's the person that can raise the most money and is the most has the best marketer can be elected, but they might not always be the most qualified. So there are some arguments to the appointed superintendent, but me personally, I tend to lean toward the elected superintendent.
Okay. A set statewide school start date or a date set by the locals?
I think locals, I like to see more local autonomy in the programs and in the things they do in their community as much as reasonably possible.
Okay. Should teacher evaluation scores be accessible to the families or should they be closed?
I think scores are good to be open. You need to have transparency in all our businesses. We have it at Sertoma. I mean, it is important to have that transparency, but the bit on the scoring, though, is oftentimes not everything is taken into consideration, because if you're taking a teacher's scores for the kids in, say, an inner city school that don't have the parental involvement and don't have the families and the community support versus the teacher scores of the kids in the more affluent areas that the parents are actively involved and they're investing in their kids' education and time and energy, you are going to have a difference in the teacher scores. So I think we can't just look at the student scores. We've got to bring in some other components into that merit system. And I know that's a hard thing to do. The good thing is there's a lot of talk about education now, and I think we need to continue that discussion and work to make the system better. I think at times right now we're making a lot of our teachers the scapegoats, and I think we've got a lot of wonderful teachers in our system. We just need to work to get them the tools to